Today we will be subtracting fractions. This lesson is geared more toward 5th grade, but if you are needing help with subtracting fractions, hopefully this video will help. Let's go ahead and get started. Here I'm going to subtract 4 1/3 minus 2 3/8. So I'm going to start by looking at my denominators in the fractions. For now, I'm going to completely ignore the whole numbers on this side. I will work with those in a minute. But I notice that my denominators are not the same, which means I have to find the lowest common denominators. So I know that I can write my multiples of 3 and my multiples of 8. So if we start 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18, 21, and 24. Now let's do the multiples of 8. 8, 16, and 24. So I can see that the very first number that they have in common is 24. So I'm going to take 24 and write it here. Then I have to ask myself, what do I do to the 8 to make it a 24? Well, I multiply it times 3. And whatever I do on the bottom, I have to do on the top. 3 times 3 is 9. Now I do the same thing with my other one. 3 times 8 is equal to 24. So 1 times 8 is equal to 8. And now that my denominators are the same, I'm ready to subtract. But I notice that there is a little problem. I cannot subtract 8 and 9. 8 minus 9 is not going to work. So this is where I have to regroup. So I'm going to take 1 away from this whole number. When I take 1 away, it becomes the number 3. And if I look at a fraction, 24, if I write 24 over 24, that is equivalent to 1. So that's the one that I took away from here. And I'm going to give it to this fraction. So I'm going to add 24 over 24, which is equivalent to the 1 that I just took away from this 3. So 24 plus 8, count up, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32. 32 24ths. Now I have a new part. Now I'm going to rewrite this fraction and only write the parts I need. So I still have my 3, and now I have this new part, which is 32 24ths minus 2, and then there's this part right here, 9 24ths. Now, again, my denominators are now alike. And since they're alike, I can now subtract 32 minus 9. 2 minus 9, can't do it. So I need to regroup. 3, that's not a 3, that's a 2. And that becomes a 12. So 12 minus 9 is 3, and then 2 minus nothing is 2. So 32 minus 9 is 23 over 24. 3 minus 2 is 1. And that is my answer. And yes, there is a lot of work involved. If you couldn't really see the lowest common denominator, you had to do this part. And that takes a minute. And then if you can't subtract, 8 minus 9 is not possible, so you have to regroup. And that's just one of the steps that you have to take. Now let's look at another one. Here I've got, this one's a little bit easier. I've got 3 5 6 minus 2 1 12. So just by looking at the denominators, lowest common denominator, I've got 6 and 12. Well, I know that the next multiple of 6 is 12. So my common denominator, the lowest one, is 12. Now 12 times 1 is 12, so 1 times 1 is 1. 6 times 2 is 12, so 5 times 2 is 10. Now, I don't have to rewrite this. I don't have to regroup anything. 10 minus 1 is 9. and my denominator stays the same, so that would be 9/12. Now 3 minus 2 is 1. Now if you look at this problem can be simplified. I can divide 9 by 3 and 12 by 3. So I rewrite my 1. 9 divided by 3 is 3, and 12 divided by 3 is 4. So my answer here is 1 3/4. This problem was a little bit easier because you didn't have to regroup, but you still had to find the lowest common denominator. Let's try another one. Here I've got 5 5/8 minus 2 3/4. So again, I need to write my lowest common denominator, and I can do that by looking for multiples of 8 and 4. So here, obviously 4, and the next multiple would be 8. So my lowest common denominator here is 8. 4 times 2 is equal to 8. So 3 times 2 is equal to 6. Here, 8 times 1 is equal to 8, and 5 times 1 is equal to 5. Now, here's where we have a little problem. 5 minus 6 isn't going to work. So I am going to have to, regroup. So I'm going to take 1 from here. That is going to become a 4. Now that 1, this one right here that I took from this one, I'm going to give it to this fraction. But to make it easy to add, I'm going to convert this fraction into 8/8. 8/8 is equal to 1. It's the same value. So I'm going to add 8/8. So let's add 5 plus 8. 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 eighths. Now, this fraction now got a little messy, this problem, so I'm going to rewrite it. I still have to keep my 4, and this is the new fraction I'm using, 13/8, and I've got minus 2, and then this is the new part I'm using, 6/8. Now if you notice, my denominators are the same, so I now can subtract 13 minus 6. 13 minus 6 is 7/8. 4 minus 2 is 2. And that is how you solve that problem. This was a little harder because you had to regroup and find the lowest common denominator. But if you take your time and work through it, you should be able to do it. Let's look at another problem. Here I have 3 7/8 minus 2 1/6. So the first thing I need to do is find my multiples of 8 and my multiples of 6 to find my lowest common denominator. So 8, 16, 24. Now I'm going to do the 6, 12, 18, and 24. Looks like the lowest common denominator will be 24. Now I'm going to erase this, just to have a little room over here to work. But I kept my lowest common denominator right here. So I'll rewrite 24 here and 24 here. Now 6 times 4 is 24, and 1 times 4 is 4. 8 times 3 is 24, and 7 times 3 is 21. Now at this point you can rewrite your problem if you want, so that it won't be so messy. I still have my 3. I don't have to regroup, so I have 3 and 21/24 minus 2 and 4/24. So 21 minus 4, If you can do that in your head, that's great, or you can count backwards: 21, 20, 19, 18, 17, 24ths, and 3 minus 2 is 1. This problem cannot be reduced, it cannot be simplified, so this is our final answer. Let's try one more. Here I've got 3 1/2 minus 1 3/4. So I need to find my lowest common denominator, and I've got 2 and 4. So 2 and 4 looks like 4 will be my lowest common denominator. So I'll write my 4 here and a 4 here. 4 times 1 equals 4. 3 times 1 equals 3. 4 times 2 equals 2. I'm not sorry, not 4, but 2 times 2 equals 4. And 1 times 2 equals 2. So now that my denominators are the same, now I can subtract. But if you notice, 2 minus 3, you can't subtract that. So you are going to have to regroup, which means I have to take 1 away from this one. That becomes the number 2. Now when I take 1 away from that one, if you notice what my denominator is, it's a 4. I'm going to make my fraction 4/4. So the 1 I took from here and gave to this side, I'm going to write it as 4/4 because it means the same thing. It is exactly 1. So 2 plus 4 is equal to 6, and my denominator is 4. Now, this looks a little messy, so I'm going to rewrite my problem so I don't get confused with anything. And I still have 2, so that's 2. And then my new fraction is 6/4. And that did not look like a 4. Minus 1 and 3/4. Now that my denominators are the same, I can subtract. 6 minus 3 is 3. My denominator is 4. And 2 minus 1 is 1. And that is the answer to this fraction. Alright, I hope this video has helped. If you need more help and you are my student, you obviously know that you can come to tutorials Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday at 7:30 in the morning. Thanks for watching.